Hickok 45 here. Welcome to the Hickok 45 Talks channel. Glad you found it. Yeah. I've it's been suggested that I talk about my favorite movie shooting scenes. Favorite movie shooting scenes. Favorite shooting movie scenes. And yeah, we've all got them, don't we? If we enjoy firearms, even if people who are not into the hobby of shooting, they obviously think about it. There are a lot of westerns fans, people that enjoy the movie Heat or John Wayne movies or Silverado, any of those that quite likely many are not even into firearms, don't own firearms, or maybe they have an old shotgun, but they're not shooters like you and I are, right? Uh, so these scenes are not just of interest to people who know firearms, like many of you and myself. Maybe I know a little bit about them and all that kind of. Well, anyway, okay, that'd be fun to talk about, and I started making jotting down a list of things if I did a video on it, like this video I'm doing on it. And I thought, okay, oh yeah, I forgot about that one. Yeah, there's one I like. And whenever I'm trying to think about things, I can never think about them, right? That's the way it goes. But then when you're not thinking about it, one will come to mind. And then or after you do something, like if I did a video on my favorite movie shooting scenes, well, about time I post that, well, if not then, certainly when people start making comments, I was, oh yeah, and that has happened before when I've talked about westerns or something on a Sunday video or whatever. Maybe I talked about some of my favorite westerns. I don't know in one of these, but then I see people making comments. Oh yeah, that one too. Oh yeah, that one. I forgot about that one. So when I started thinking about this, shooting scenes, I thought, well, I can think of 4 or 5 come to mind right away, but I know there'll be others that are didn't come to mind, and you all will mention them or whatever. So what I decided, so that's why I called this one favorite movie or whatever I call it, but it's going to be version one. It's going to be one, okay? Because I'll do another video on this, I'm sure, or a couple or 3, whatever. So this is my first stab at it, because for one thing, I made a list of 3 or 4. And I thought, well, I don't know. I'll just when I think of one, I'll just add to that list. I'll wait until I come up with all of them before I do a video on it. So that's dumb. I'll just do a one, and besides, you get too long anyway. By the time I yak about them all, right? So anyway, the first one that came to my mind, and some of this has to do with your age and experience and all that. I guess what kind of movies you watch the most. Some people are not big fans of westerns, so it just depends on what your movie. And there's a lot of movies I've not seen of they've been made in recent years. Maybe there may be some great shooting scenes that I would like, but the movie is terrible, or it's just something I'm not as interested in. All that sort of thing. But anyway, the first one that came to my mind was the Dirty Harry bank robbery scene, which is what early on in the first Dirty Harry movie. And I guess we were all hooked. That scene probably hooked us all right away. All right, Clint, we love you. We love Dirty Harry. This is going to be a great movie and a great series. Or I guess we didn't know it was going to be there'd be further movies at that time, maybe. But that is classic. It's just pretty much unbeatable. You get right down to it. There are a lot of great shooting scenes, but that one, in a great movie, one of the greatest actors of all time, and just how that is pulled off. He's it's really early in the movie, and he's sitting in that restaurant, diner, whatever, and sees that car sitting across the street, and just being Dirty Harry, the savvy cop that he is, he realizes it doesn't look right. They've been sitting there, throwing cigarette butts out the window for a long time, front of the bank and everything. And call has him call the yeah. There you go. Talk about being dated. He has the guy call on his phone landline. The police station. But anyway, when he walks out, takes that bite of that sandwich, hot dog, whatever it is, and walks out there chewing on that, pulls out the 44, car coming at him, him boom, and the sound right away. You're like, oh boy, this is a little different. This is realistic sound of the Magnums, and then finally the car goes off the street, hits the fire hydrant, turns over, and all that. And water going everywhere from the fire hydrant, and him walking over there casually to the guy that's down, and the famous lines, and not remembering how many rounds he shot. That is it doesn't get much better than that. And of course, it's Hollywood, and a lot of the scenes and the shooting, a lot of our favorite shooting scenes, are not necessarily based on reality and what a cop or a detective is allowed to do or would do in this situation. If you're a detective or a cop, you probably watch the Dirty Harry movies or any cop movie, and you just cringe with what they do, what they get by with, and the evidence they disturb, there's any number of things like that. But still, it's Hollywood, and we know it's fantasy, and it's just cool. It's just a cool scene. Although there is a mistake in it, probably several, and that I uncovered. I didn't just look it up or see it online. What is it now? I hadn't thought about it in forever, but when when the guy's on the ground and trying to decide whether to reach for the shotgun or not, he's been shot. Dirty Harry puts a gun on him, and how's it go? I think he puts a gun on him, and when he's explaining that, I know what you're thinking, punk. Did he fire 5 or 6 or whatever? I think he cocks it, okay, and then of course it cuts back and forth to him, to Dirty Harry, back and forth. But and then when he finally pulls the trigger again on the empty round chamber, he actually fires a double action. He's already cocked it, so he's ready to fire it. But then when it comes back to him, he pulls the trigger and it's double action. I think that's the way it goes. One of y'all watch it again and let me know. I believe that was it. Anyway, that's a great scene. That's a great scene. If you've not seen Dirty Harry, well, now if you're 8 years old, I'm not recommending in any time. Movies. I had to watch that when I would be careful when I was teaching, because we get talking about a movie, or I'd bring up a movie because it related to some literature we're studying or whatever it might be, or they'd ask about a movie. If you've seen this movie or whatever, it's some movie they shouldn't have been seeing, at 13 or whatever. So I always qualify that, be sure I'm not recommending R-rated movies or whatever movies that are too mature for somebody that's young. And then of course many of the scenes in Dirty Harry, I may think of some others that on my favorite shooting scenes part 2. I might think of some more Dirty Harry movies to talk about, but there's lots of them, and all through his movies they're pretty good, aren't they? My one of the other ones that came to mind immediately is the Quigley Down Under movie, where Matthew Quigley is shooting the bucket at whatever it is out there on the road. That's another just wonderful scene. And again, you wouldn't have to be a gun guy to enjoy that, but it's just so cool. Tom Selleck is so cool in that movie. He started out, I think, as a male model. So, he's obviously a handsome guy. The women would think, don't get me wrong here. But I mean, I remember when he would do, I think he started out as a model, and then he got jobs. He advertised for one of the cigarette companies. I remember him being, dressed in rugged clothing, leaning up against a car, smoking a Marlboro or something, so back when those ads were common. because he's considered one of the most handsome guys, and tall, dark, and handsome. And then when you dress him up in those Western clothes and the leather and the guns and gun belts and all that, he's a fine figure of a man. Let's face it. And uh, and so perfect character, perfect look, you know, and just cool dialogue. And he's cooler than anybody else in the scene, always, right, in that movie. And he's got that beautiful, Shiloh Sharp's rifle. There's big bullets, big cartridges, and and the fact he can shoot miles away, and he's a Superman. And that's kind of what we like about our heroes in the westerns or these movies is we like that Superman aspect. Somebody who is just beyond everybody else and can do things nobody else can seem to do. And it's just fun. We kind of relate to that. We like Superman, superheroes, which is what kind of Clint Eastwood was in a way. And then, of course, Quigley, that big rifle and all that cool gear. And he can hit anything with that rifle. And they doubt him, but he pulls that sucker up and makes that shot. And of course, he's about to shoot. He's being very careful, looking through that peep sight and everything, like you would need to do. And of course, at that distance, you'd need to probably be rested. But and then what's the guy say something about being an experimental round or whatever? And he pulls it down, looks, and then he pulls it up and he shoots right away. He almost does just a quick sight there and hits that bucket way out. And then the bucket jumping, and of course everybody's reaction. So that scene too is just shot so well. The editing of that scene and everybody's reaction. The cool rifle, the distance, it seems real. The sound of the rifle, they get everything right. There's other great scenes in that movie too, and that's a lot of it. Just getting things right. If you've ever gone to Netflix or even I guess Amazon, whatever Prime, but you find movies, and there's so many westerns I've never heard of, and I'm a Western fan. But I could go to Netflix today and look through there, and I'll come to one after another. Outlaw Justice or The Bad Guy of Tombstone, whatever they're called. And they've got they're like the romance novels, I guess, that the cover is dramatic, and wow, that looks exciting. And the thumbnail for that movie looks great, but you open one up and okay, after about 2 minutes into it, you realize this is a B grade movie, maybe a C grade movie, and there's just a difference how the scenes are shot, and there's a big difference. Like that zombie movie I was in, there's just a difference. Of course, zombie movies were maybe a little bit more forgiving. There's so many lame zombie movies out there. But anyway, that was a great movie. Quigley. Just a couple more. In part one here. Another one that sticks in my mind is The Getaway. Talked about that Sunday morning shoot-arounds, I guess, Sunday shoot-arounds. There are several good. Now I'm talking about the original Getaway. There's been a remake of that, right? But the Getaway with Steve McQueen, Ali McGraw. That was early '70s, and as I've mentioned before, it started my love affair with shotguns, with defensive shotgun, buckshot, and all that. It really did. I wanted one of those when I saw that. I've confessed, I've admitted, I've been affected by movies. It was Steve McQueen took that short-barreled pump shotgun and shot those police cars. And when I saw how buckshot opened up those hoods and caught them on fire, but all drama aside, I had enough sense to realize I was into shooting by that time, and that was cool. And that's kind of what buckshot would look like, for real, double-aught buck and everything. I don't know if he would knock the hood loose and catch the car on fire, but it might, But I was so impressed with that scene, with that use of the shotgun. It was pretty cool. Steve McQueen, just cool to begin with, right? So, and then there were other scenes in that movie, with the 6-inch Colt Python that the bad guy had, and everything. Yeah, Sally Struthers. That's right. What a cast! I forget the guy's name. He would show up in a lot of gangster movies. That the one who carried the Colt Python uh, got shot, was wounded. Sally Struthers, was taking care of him and all that. Man, did he have the look of a bad guy? I think he's died since. I saw something about that, but I mean, he was the perfect bad guy, mobster, whatever. He just had the look, didn't he? And so that was a good movie. If you haven't seen that, you'd enjoy that one. Uh, and the last one in part one I'll talk about is Open Range with Robert Duvall, Kevin Costner. It's a little slower moving movie for some people's taste. It's not Tombstone, where every minute, 2 minutes, there's something glamorous or some drama, maybe happening. But it's just a good movie. Obviously, you don't get any better than Costner and Duvall as actors, and it's a good movie. I mean, there's drama. There's some interesting scenes, shooting scenes. The scene that comes to mind always is, excuse me, the last, pretty much last scene in the movie, the shootout. It's there's something about it. It's a little different than a lot of shootout scenes in westerns. It's not. I don't know. It's not overly Hollywooded up. It seems realistic. A lot of it, the shooting part of it, seemed realistic, more realistic than a lot of, even the sounds of the gunfire and different things, because they're shooting, like mostly pistol cartridges, 1873 Winchesters and that kind of thing, and shotguns and their handguns. And there's just some cool scenes in that movie. One of the best ones is when, of course, Kevin Costner walks up on the gunfighter and takes care of him right away. But that's part of the last shooting scene. That kind of kicks it off, right? So anyway, those are four that came to mind immediately, or the first ones, and there are so many in even these movies, other ones, and other movies that we can talk about and you'll mention. But maybe mention one of your favorites, and maybe outside of these, and I'll put that on my list. If it's one of my favorites, it has to be one of my favorites, and you are simply reminding me of it, okay? Because I've seen most of them. Again, unless it's a modern movie that I just haven't seen, some B grade, C grade movie that its only claim to fame is it has some good shooting scenes in it. And there's no, oh man, there's no limit to the great shooting scenes. And of course, all the movies that have ever been made, there's probably 100, 200 that we could come up with they're pretty good, right? So anyway, that's all I got to say. And as you can imagine from these scenes, or before the scenes, whatever, I have partaken of those firearms. The Model 29 is one of my favorites. The Sharps single shots, one of my favorites. Short-barreled shotguns are my favorites. Colt single actions, any single action, they're my favorites. Actually, I have about 100 or 200 favorites, don't I? Yeah, that's my problem. There's not a lot of hope for me. I just need to stay on the swing, talking to the camera. Maybe that's the best thing for my addiction. If I would just sit on the swing all day long, talk to the camera, and not be out shooting and buying guns and all that, maybe that could break my addiction to some extent. Maybe my new addiction could be talking about guns, talking about my addiction rather than living it. Yeah, y'all could help me. Y'all are kind of a therapy, keeping me off the range and away from firearms, out of the gun shops, out of the gun shows. What about that? Probably wouldn't work, would it? I'd be sneaking off the swing. Life is good.